This is the 13,500 mile review of the KTM 1090 Adventure R. This is an intermediate service review. It's between the 9,600 mile and the 18,600 mile services. I do my services every 4,500 miles. I ride in desert conditions. I believe if you're riding in any off-road conditions or you're in dirt, dust, no matter what part of the country you're in, I'm in the Southwest, that you do more frequent services. So 4,500 miles takes me about maybe an hour and a half, taking my time to service the air filter, the oil, and go through the entire KTM service checklist. So it's a pretty good investment. Oil change and service is probably going to be the cheapest engine overhaul that you'll do. I do use the recommended Motorex oil. I buy one of their service packs, so it comes with O-rings, filters, oil, everything that you need to do your service except for the air cleaner. If you're running a stock paper filter, then you'll need to buy one of those additionally. I run the unifilter. I do a service on the unifilter, and that really has done very well. The paper filter, the first paper filter, there was just a fine amount of dust within the clean air chamber side. So I believing what I read on the internet and seeing what I saw in person, I bought the unifilter complete kit. So it's the intakes, the box gasket, and then the actual dual stage filter. It's been perfectly clean. I oil the crap out of it, make sure it's super clean, then I put it back in. I'm probably going to buy a second set so that when I do my service, I don't have to wait for it to dry out and go through that process. I can have a clean oiled filter ready to go. I can bolt it back together right away. I have not had any more issues with ECU codes, throwing codes or anything like that. There's been no issues. I checked all the bearings. Like I said, I went through the entire list, the entire checklist, and everything is doing really well as far as the bike proper. Everything that came from KTM is working well. I do notice one of the complaints I have for service is the chain slide only lasts about 4,500 miles. I've seen guys say that they get 20,000 miles out of them. I see guys that say they get 1,500 miles out of them. I'm pretty religious about chain tension, and it's chewing it up. I don't know, maybe it's the silica, the dirt that we're in, heat, who knows, but I get about 4,500 miles. You're supposed to get through a service with them anyway, and that has not occurred yet. I'm still running the stock chain, the stock sprockets. Those are in really good shape still. So moving on from the bike itself, like I said, the bike itself is has been really good, better than I could have expected, better than the stories you may hear on the internet about reliability and things like that of KTM in general. I think they did a really good job with these 1090s, 1290s. They're really, they seem to be just as good as any other machine that's out there, and maybe even better. Moving outside of KTM, the Tusk pannier racks. I bought these for protection mostly, and they're pretty stout. I mean, they're very stout. They've taken some pretty good hits. They've stood up to it. They've been just almost like a piece of the frame. I could have gone with some detachable ones, but I wanted protection for my exhaust. I wanted protection on this side. I mean, both sides give me some pretty decent high protection for layovers, off-road, and it actually keeps it up off of my leg. they're high enough so that my leg doesn't get caught under it and broken like you would with hard bags or something like that. I use soft bags to travel with. Mirrors, the double take mirrors those are great. I put them on every bike. The rocks risers, and there's not much you can say about those. They work perfectly. The fuel exhaust, can't say enough about that. Great price point, well manufactured. It's as good as the Aero or anything else you're going to buy, and it's probably about $400 or $500 cheaper. I know everybody's got their favorite exhaust manufacturer. The rear tire, I went back to the Motovlog Adventure tire, Tractionator Adventure, and it's been very good. I couldn't have a complaint about it as far as handling off-road. On-road, it's very good on-road. The last tire I had the splits along the center lugs. That kind of was an issue. This one has not had that issue. I've got about 4,100, 4,200 miles on it, and I probably got another 1,600 to go before it's worn out. I'll do a separate review on that tire, but I think it's a good tire. It's still too stiff for my satisfaction as far as trying to get the tire spooned on yourself. If you're in a trail location and you've lost the bead, I think you're done. You're probably going to have to get recovered. I don't see you getting the bead back on this tire off-road. The Outback Motortech setup that I have, I've actually expanded it, so I got the upper bars, the skid plate, and I've added the center stand. Center stand works really well. There's springs are a little bit noisy, but that could have been the way I installed them. The upper bars are great. They've taken some hits and have stood up to it. Outback Motortech itself, they make a very good stout product. I've had two sets. I had a whole complete upper lower skid plate on my Triumph, and I had no failures on that. I have had my first Outback Motortech failure on the skid plate on this motorcycle. The clutch side rear skid plate mount failed. And I say failed because it wasn't because of a hit. A hit may have brought on its early demise, but the part was welded onto a support tube. So a bolt goes through the support tube, and then there's a flat bracket that goes over the support tube, and there should have been a complete orbital weld all the way around that tube, and it was only welded. The weld was only captured on the top. The bottom part wasn't. The weld did not take. So eventually that flat plate broke in half, and then I could hear a metal jingling on my last trip, and that's exactly what happened. I'll do a separate review on Outback Motortech as a company. I think I probably need to do that. I think they're a good company. It's just they have some quirks, and I'll explain that in a separate video. The stock front tire, I'm on my third stock front tire, and those work super well. I don't see changing those out, but I'm trying to think of what else we got. Oh, I've got a cheap Amazon GPS mount for the top here, and that's absolutely worthless. I wouldn't have put that on again. The rock protector I got one of those mesh rock protectors for the headlight grill, and that's come in handy a couple of times. I've ridden a couple of times behind some folks, and getting rocks chucked at you, that thing's actually worked pretty well even for a cheap one. Other than that, there's nothing that stands out too much. I'm getting about 50 miles a gallon in mixed riding. Off-road, I probably get about 35, 38, somewhere around there. If it's really tough off-road, it's probably somewhere around mid-low 30, so like 32, 33, 34 miles a gallon. But I don't have any issues with the capacity of the tank. I mean, we've got 6 gallons. The weight of this bike is great. My intent for this bike is to be able to ride long distances and be able to ride off-road in any conditions that I come into. This thing's short of single track, short of rock hopping. I can do just about anything on this. It's like a really big dual sport. Very capable. I was of the mindset that I would have a large bike, a small dirt bike, and a dual sport, and that this has gotten rid of the dual sport portion of it. I don't need anything in between a dirt bike and this. This will handle anything from highway to gravel roads to 2-track to I've even ridden on single track. So most of the folks that are looking at this video right now are going to be looking at a used unit. I would not have an issue purchasing one used if it's been maintained well. Make sure you see records and things like that. The guy's done the oil changes. One of the big issues that I do see with these KTM Big Twins is if you're not using proper oil, you're not doing the proper maintenance, you're probably going to have some type of engine failure. Same with any other engine, but these are pretty complex engines, and they need the right care. So if you're going to go out and purchase one, I would say I would definitely do it. It's a very enjoyable bike. It can take you long distances touring. It can take you long distances off-road. And if you're riding down a paved road and you see a dirt road, you don't have to fear going off that road. You've got a bike that's capable of doing that. So if you have any questions or comments, please comment down below. I answer all my comments, or as many as I can. Typically I answer every single one. So if you've got a question about this bike or about adventure bikes in general, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. So please comment, subscribe, ding that bell so you get notified when I put up new videos. I don't just do reviews, I do riding videos around the Southwest. Like and share. Adios.